I have been working off the assumption that the current political leadership wants to protect the death cult um, with this file business and thus was likely involved. Um, if somehow that's not true, um, and they don't just work for death and they actually do want to try to make things better in America and in the world, uh, their playbook's real bad right now. Um, so you've started this war, the strait is shut, and oil is up. Um, we're almost back up to 100 on Brent. Uh, West Texas is a few dollars back, um, with the backwardation narrowing slightly um, to the future months, but still serious backwardation, meaning the markets still think this is temporary. But the reality is the strait is shut. If it was possible to unshut it, I would think they would have worked that into the plan on the get go, knowing that this is what Iran would respond with. And therefore, I am going to assume that this cannot be unshut and that there is now going to be a permanent supply crunch. So we got the G7 releasing, I believe it was 300 barrels or 300 million barrels, maybe it's 400 million. And then we've now had Trump come in and say he's going to release 170 million from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. These are very temporary measures. Uh, I, from my recollection of the math, about that SPR release will cover about a week of the oil that used to go through the strait, while the G7 might add a couple weeks. So maybe you're looking at 3 weeks. But if this is a permanent closure, which I'm assuming it is, that only buys you 3 weeks of avoiding a catastrophe. But you're also, in a sense, manipulating the markets because you're dumping supply that's not going to be sustainable. And so price is not going to adjust upward the way that it would if you weren't doing that. And the thing about price is when price goes up, people make decisions. They stop using, they stop buying. And that is how the quantity supply and the quantity demand find an equilibrium, which needs to happen and will happen. Because you cannot create oil out of thin air. An equilibrium, you can't consume what you don't produce. So I think this is a big mistake. We're this currency's going to zero unless the gold reserve is there, which I don't believe it is. And when it goes to zero, the more assets the government has that are real assets that have real value, the more bargaining chips they're going to have, and the more opportunity they're going to have to do what needs to be done, which is try to keep people alive. So I think this is a mistake. And I wrote a whole book about solutions for this dollar collapse. But the first part is you need to understand that this is what is going to happen. That's tough, but that's how fiat currencies end. That's why we've been concerned about the debt for all these years. This is how it ends. We can have a better world. Some people are going to take a haircut. So, the longer we wait, the more screwed up things are going to be, the fewer assets, real assets, the government's going to have left, and the more death and destruction is going to happen. Um, and the less chance that anyone who's in the Middle East that's going to need to evacuate is going to have to get out of there. Uh, you know, Israel's got a lot of enemies in that region. It's going to be very hard for them to defend against those enemies once the dollar collapses. Yeah, if people need refuge, my belief is that each landowner should be free to let whoever they want onto their own land. But I guess we'll just see what happens.